Hey, we are so excited to be here today with you. I'm Vivi,
And I'm Claire.
and we are Urban Femina. First, I would like to introduce ourselves. Urban Femina is a feminist collective formed by 9 students of the Four Cities program. It's a master's in urban studies. So since Brussels, 1 year ago actually, we decided to create this collective to explore other perspectives, to tackle urban issues such as gender perspectives, post-colonial, because we consider that these perspectives have been neglected not only in the academia but like in life in general. So we decided to bring our knowledges and our energies together and our different backgrounds. Like we come from different disciplines. Me myself, from Mexico City, and I am a communication scientist. Claire is from the States.
Yeah, and I studied political science, but have worked in bicycle and pedestrian urban planning and design.
So now our aim is to share all this passion for these urban issues with you, and also to get to know more about the concept of care.
Yeah, thanks, Vivi. We over the past two semesters, we just started. I guess we're partway through our third semester with the Four Cities program, and last semester the 9 of us worked together on bringing a feminist perspective to issues of mobility, and this really got us thinking about how. Kind of introduced a lot of us, including myself, to the concept of the caring city, and got us thinking a lot about um, how we I don't know how we care for each other, how the city cares for us. Um, and so this is something that we've been talking a lot about as a group. And then when we arrived in Copenhagen and Jacob approached the Four Cities cohort with this opportunity for a radio program, I just want to say we're really thankful to have this space to explore these ideas together. And so our idea for the program is all of the episodes are going to be connected somehow to the issue of care and what does care mean in an urban environment. But each of the members of Urban Femina are going to be taking turns to really dive into an issue that we care about, that we're passionate about, and to explore it with you. We're going to be in conversation today with Vivi and then with another colleague, Belu, who'll be calling us from Barcelona. And and as we're getting into this issue of care, we want to open it up to you. And so please chat at us. Just what does care mean to you? And we're gonna, I'll let Vivi talk about Sarah's music. But yeah, please chat at us about what does care mean to you and what does care look like in an urban environment.
Yes, you would notice there is a chat habilitated for you to share with us your ideas and concepts of what you understand as care. And we want to talk about, like, because we also want to show music and also like to bring into the scene also the projects that our members are working in. So I'm going to talk to you about Sarita's project. Sara is an Urban Femina member, and she is from Paris. She's from France, and she has just started a monthly residence on the French T-Radioen, and Sarita called it the Medusa Sound, inspired by the French author Hélène Cixous and her book The Medusa's Laugh from 1975, where she explained the importance of women in literature, in writing, and also how writing is so important for women. So now she likes to take this idea to put into the scene and to show the musical work of some women that of course she likes and she also values because of their contribution also to the feminist conversation. So if you want to listen to Sarita's program, it's every Tuesday or every last Tuesday of each month on the radio.live at 3 p.m. also. And we are super happy because Sarita is using this opportunity also to collaborate and to bring her musical taste into this program, into Urban Femina sharing the Caring City program. So this first song that we're going to show to you, she actually made it during quarantine times in Vienna while we were in Vienna because as we were saying, our master's program is held in 4 cities. So the first one was Brussels, and the second one was Vienna. And while she was living there in lockdown with her boyfriend, that he is also a musician and a DJ, they composed this EP of 3 songs. So now this is the one that we're going to introduce is called Saturday, and they call it in that way because, of course, I assume that as a lot of you also wanted to have fun and missed going to parties and everything, and Saturday is the day of the week when we go out to enjoy. So that's why she called it today like that. Sorry, and also she would like this to be a reflection on how the musical industry, not only in France but around the world, is going through this crisis because of COVID. So yeah, we would like you to listen to this music and to her artistic outcome.
Great. Yeah, I just want to say a big shout out to Sarita, for this song, and we'll be hearing 2 more songs by her throughout the rest of the episode, and then closing out with 1 more female artist that she selected for us. Yeah, so we wanted to welcome Belu, who's another, I would say, one of the original founding members of Urban Femina, who's going to be joining us in conversation today. And so, hey, Belu.
Hello, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Doing good.
And I realized that we were so excited to talk about Urban Femina and to talk about the radio program that we didn't actually introduce ourselves properly. So thought maybe we should take a second to say a little bit about who we are and how we got to be here. I can start. My name is Claire, as I mentioned at the beginning, and I studied political science and really kind of took a pretty circuitous route to get to the 4 Cities program. Which I don't need to talk about now, but what I can say is that I think the common threads for me throughout my life have been issues of mobility and how we move through space and how we relate to the spaces that we move through. And something that I'll probably be talking about later on over the next couple of weeks is my thesis research, which is on public participation and online engagement in co-creation online design charrettes. So if you know anything about online design charrettes and want to chat with me, please hit me up. I love talking about this. And I think just for me, while I've got the mic in front of me, this question of why care and why care is so important. And this is something I think we'll talk about later on in the show, but I think I had the experience of being not the primary caretaker, but a caretaker for my grandmother who's in her 90s. And these experiences are something I'm sure I'm going to be talking about both today and then in the future. And so, yeah.
Okay. As I was telling you, I'm Vivi. I'm from Mexico City. I studied communication sciences. I mean, it might sound very broad what that is, but my focuses are in narrative journalism and political communication. So my thesis project for this master's program is about narratives of coming from the governments when they want to change a city, and how there are also resistance narratives. Because for me, I'm very I don't like saying that I'm radical, but so far my stance is that there is no real participation because citizens are not really empowered with the technical knowledge of the urban planners or the urban architects. So that's why it's very important to me, to get to understand the imaginaries of the people that they have in their minds about what is a city and how they think of the city in their daily lives, because I truly believe that the discourse of the city is only exclusively of urban planners or architects or maybe some journalists, but it's not something that us as persons and dwellers of cities talk about that in our daily lives, or we reflect how we are shaping and producing our cities. So also, if you want to talk more about narratives or imaginaries or how you conceive the city in your daily lives, we're more than open to hear your thoughts. Actually, we are super looking forward for that. And now, Belu, I will let you to introduce yourself and to talk about how things are going in Barcelona for you.
I just want to say that you sound so cool. I want to be your friend.
We are already friends.
I am in Barcelona. I am from Argentina, but I've lived in New Zealand for the last 6 years, where I studied development studies and environmental studies, and where I really got into like in decolonial studies and yes. In New Zealand and in colonial countries, that's like the whole kind of atmosphere. That's everything that you see it from that lens. And I kind of missed the feminist perspective. And then I arrived in Europe and I met all these beautiful women, and I started getting into the feminist approach, and kind of obviously mixing all of them together. So those are all my interests now, apart from urban studies, which is the master we are doing. And in Barcelona here, I'm doing my thesis on superblocks from a feminist perspective. Superblocks are a planning tool, like a planning model for cities that deprioritize cars and prioritize public spaces, and they want to improve them and create new ones. And so it's very in line with all the sustainability agenda that all governments are following. But I'm looking at it from a feminist perspective to introduce all these concepts that we are going to be talking about in the show today and in the coming ones, to take a critical look at a planning tool that is very popular in Europe at the moment, and also because Barcelona is such a model for urban planning that, perhaps looking at ways of how can this model be improved.
And Belu, within your research, how can you define the concept of care? Because every time we've been talking to some people, and of course it's understandable, we tend to relate maybe like the care only like to a microsphere of the intimacy and the private life. But can you explain us more like what is exactly care? What do we mean when we talk about care?
Yeah, I guess this is going to be not something that we will discuss throughout the show today, but quickly I see, there are like 4 points, aspects of care in regards to urbanism. Cities should allow you to look after others, should allow you to look after yourself, cities should look after you and look after the environment. And I feel that my thesis is more in those two. So it's how planning and governments and cities can be planned in a way that look after the environment, but also look after people, but also the other two. But I think it's a little bit more macro, my approach, not so, yeah.
And can you tell us a bit more, like also who are the authors that started talking about care, where the concept comes from?
Yeah, so care, starting from the very beginning, this is Carol Gillian. Carol Gillian kind of, she worked a lot with women, and she realized that in opposition to like the main ethics that are dominant, that are like about justice and autonomy, women don't, or the women she was working with didn't tend to make decisions based on this. Their decisions were made more on relationships. So she said, like, this group of women were making decisions based on something different to like the dominant moral of the time. So she named this ethics of care. This is the kind of the origin of the concept, but it has been developed and also criticized much, but not criticized. I mean, like it has been, how do you say, like
challenged, maybe?
Yeah, challenged, but also which helped to develop the term further, the concept further. So now then there is this person called Joanne Tronto, who's very like an eminence, and people really follow what she says, and she talks about care, the ethics of care as an alternative to the dominant care ethics, so to the neoliberal way of seeing the world. And there is this quote that she says that I find very interesting, and I will say it now, but maybe we'll come back later to this. But Joanne Tronto says that care is a caring approach to politics and democracy should consider all social groups because it recognizes that exclusion has often been the way in which some are stuck with disproportionate caring responsibilities. So I feel you said you didn't want to be radical, Vivi, but I think it's quite radical.
Yeah, actually, it's challenging the idea of how we think the city and how we think life in general. Um, Claire, would you like to present the next song of Sarita to make a pause and also to give you some time for you participants in this show of continue sharing with us your conceptions about the care and maybe if you feel differently about care?
Sure. So we're gonna play another song from Sara from her EP, and this is called UK Cheat. Cool. Great. Welcome back to Sharing the Caring City with myself. I'm Claire.
Vivi?
And Belu, you want to?
Hello.
And just want to say you are listening to T-Radioen. So please do whatever you need to do to follow them and the other shows that they do. There's going to be 2 more hours of English language programming after us from 4 to 5 and then from 5 to 6. So stick around for some advice on childhood as a Dane and for noise complaint from 5 to 6. So before the break, we were talking about the caring city, and just to kind of expand on some of what Belu was talking about, I think one of our objectives with both this show today and then the series of shows that we're going to be doing for the rest of the Sundays through the middle of December is really trying to expand the way that we think about care. And I think probably like a lot of you, when I first think of care, I think of, moms with strollers and maybe old people in walkers. And I think one of the things that diving into the literature on care and the caring city is that we all need care all of the time, and we're all giving care all of the time. And so it's not something that you give or you receive at a certain phase of your life. And that's something that I think we're going to be expanding upon in our shows going forward. The other thing that I wanted to talk about was I lost my notes.
Well, maybe while Claire reminds, because like this is the first time, I would like to say hi to everyone that is listening to us. Bella, I see you now this time, and she is recommending the book Pleasure Activism that talks about ethics of care. Pleasure Activism, the politics of feeling good. And it says it talks about the politics of healing and happiness that can be adopted in our political organizing. So yeah, thanks for sharing your recommendation, and also I assume that that's your perspective on what is care. Also, hola, papa y mamá, that I know that are listening to me from Mexico, and
that's so sweet. So just to kind of recatch my train of thought. So I think geographers and feminists have been talking about issues of care and the spaces that care happens in, maybe some of the materialities. So for example, in transportation, curb cuts is a big conversation. And so whether or not streetscapes are accessible. And then also the subjects or objects of care, the people who are giving or receiving care. And this scholarship is incredibly important. And I think just the conversation that we've been having within Urban Femina about, our own positions within these hierarchies and structures of privilege, and I think we've had a lot of self-reflexive conversations, which I'm hoping we'll be sharing over in the next few months with you. And I think this research is really important because it exposes the ways in which inequalities are mapped onto certain types of bodies or classes or groups of people who are engaged specifically in providing care. And I think this is something Vivi's going to talk about in just a minute. But, I think our society really rests upon having people who are doing care work. And that's something that we're also going to be exploring throughout the rest of the program. And one of the big topics that we've been talking a lot about within Urban Femina is how the experience of the past 7 months during COVID has really helped us change the way that we think about care and the way that we see care in the city. And this was something that Millie, who's another one of our members, and Vivi and I were talking about yesterday. And Millie said something that was really beautiful, and I hope I can do you justice, Millie, but she said that kind of COVID in this period really shed light on the things that we weren't taking time to care about, and then also the people who are engaged in care activities that we weren't necessarily seeing or acknowledging or appreciating. I'm thinking about all of the essential workers who had to continue going to work while people like me was able to Zoom into my classroom and continue my graduate education. So this is something that's really prompted a lot of conversation and I think reflection within us. That was what I wanted to say.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk?
Yeah, building more on what Claire is being saying is putting the accent on how we're living in a world shaped by neoliberal logics in the end. So precisely Joanne Tronto, one of the quotes that I really liked from her is that she tells us that in the end, neoliberalism is a fallacy because we all need care and we all need to give care to other people. So I think that says a lot because I love working with narratives. In the end, my ideal is that we all get to understand that neoliberalism and the way we understand life, it's only a narrative that like a specific group is building for us to continue like reproducing the capital and also to stop taking care about the others and about each others. So I think that it's very important like to start demystifying this and unpacking this concept of neoliberalism with the caring values that also Velu is going to tell us more about that.
Yeah, I just came to my mind because it's a very trending topic, not necessarily related to a city, but this whole show with Donald Trump hiding his COVID, saying it's just a flu and blah blah blah. It's part of the same narrative, right? It's in a world where we are not allowed to feel weak, especially if you are a man, especially if you are the leader of a powerful country. So you can't show weakness. So I don't know, like this is, so he's so focused on telling us that he's okay, that he can keep going, instead of, admitting that he is going through perhaps a very, I don't know, he's not feeling very well or whatever. So that's an example, I feel. Yeah, so caring in the cities, is that what you said you wanted me to talk a little bit about?
Yeah, the ethical qualities of care. Or
do you want to talk about that, Bellu, or I can talk about it, or Vivi can talk about it?
Maybe you can talk about it, and I will step in.
Cool.
Okay. Well, Joanne Tronto actually makes us paying attention to the ethical qualities of care. I just want to remind that we are explaining this again to demystify the concept. Like it's more than sharing is caring, the phrase that we see printed like in teacups or in notebooks. So here I want to talk about that it's very important to understand this for ethical qualities of care. And the first one is the attentiveness, that care requires the recognition of the other's needs in order to respond to them. So the question that arises here is the distinction between ignore the other's needs or the inattentiveness. When it's a matter of ignoring them or when it's a matter of inattentiveness. The second one is the responsibility, like in order to take care, we must take it upon ourselves. We need to be co-responsible. This speech that is also like a trend nowadays of being co-responsible, not only of you and your feelings, but also about like the other person, because in the end, every action that we are doing affects the others and vice versa. So the competency that is required to provide care, we should be also able to provide care and to really recognize when we are able or not. The fourth one is responsiveness of the care receiver to the care. And Joanne Tronto, she states that responsiveness states a very important moral problem because it's concerned with conditions of vulnerability and inequality. So this is not the same as reciprocity, but it's only an idea of understanding that we all are vulnerable and that we are inserted in this unequal logic. So yeah, and the other one, the fifth one, and it's very important also for me because of my background, is the plurality, communication, trust, and respect, solidarity. So in the end, we cannot aim to achieve a caring paradigm to be to be done and to be pursued if we don't talk between each other, if we don't engage into this responsibility and make the effort in understanding ourselves, but also the others and what the other needs and how can we help the others. So, Belu, if you wanted to tell us the next song for Sarita to make a pause and for you to continue reflecting on this topic.
Yeah, sure. Next song is Times Move Slow, and it's also a song from the EP produced during COVID.
Thanks.
There we go. Welcome back. Thank you for listening to Sharing the Caring City with the members of the Urban Femina collective.
And Belu, you have some things to share with us?
Yeah, I was thinking that we were talking a lot about caring and how cool it is. And I know also from experience from being in class, from feedback and also from work experience that people sometimes might connect, might not like this connection between the ethics of care and women, you know, because it might sound that it's essentializing, and this is not the message we want to send out. It's obviously in an ideal world, everyone would care, you know, everyone would share the caring activities. But it's true that in this world, it tends to be associated with women because of gender roles and because of, hegemonic ways of thinking. And this results in sometimes the ethics of care constraining generating constraints for women. For example, this idea of we have a responsibility for being nice. So this might, you know, women who don't want to feel like act like this, they may not feel at ease in public space, or we end up with the responsibility of looking after children or people or other people, and this might generate in us some kind of fear because we might not go to some public spaces and or to others because they are not safe enough. There's also feelings of that we have to behave in a way, not just being nice, but, you know, dress in a way or do certain things. And when you don't conform to the norm, this also results in a constraint for us in public space. But having said this, there is much more to the ethics of care and this is perhaps the message of this show and the coming ones, that this happens, but we want to see the ethics of care and show it and present it in a way that it's an alternative, because it's larger. It's about looking after the environment, it's about looking after others, it's about looking after creating institutions and spaces that allow us to, you know, lead our lives and feel safe and, you know, live up to our full potential. So I think Claire, she had a very cool quote.
What you were saying, Belu, reminded me of something that I was reading in preparation for the show, which is a quote from Michael Brown. And he writes, "We are not the autonomous individual imagined by liberal political theory. Rather, we are all profoundly interdependent and yet not equally burdened with the work of care." And I think that this kind of picks up on two things. One thing that Vivi was talking about before, and then what you were talking about, Belu, and this idea that in kind of the current neoliberal capitalist system that we are operating in, there's been a devolution of this idea of responsibility down to the individual, and that it's not the role of society or the state. And we can talk about this. We're in Denmark, at least Vivi and I are in Denmark right now, and I think has a pretty strong welfare state. But in a lot of contexts, the role of the state is really retreating from this idea of taking care of people. And this is something that is very much rests on the shoulder of individuals, and then to find the care that they need, and then to provide the care for those in their immediate circle. And that's something that I think the feminist ethic of care and this idea of the caring city is really trying to push against, that it's not, care is not the role of the responsibility of the individual. It's something that should be embedded into the fabric of society.
Actually, for making this concept even clearer for you, we would like to share with you why we started caring about care. So Claire, if you want to share your personal experience, you were talking about your grandma, but how did you start reflecting on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think in my mid-20s, I lived with my grandmother, who's in her 90s, and she lives in suburbia in the United States, and it's the house that she's lived in since my mom was born. And so on the one place, this is really her community. And yet, one of the things that really got me actually inspired to apply for the Four Cities Masters program was I quickly came to see, I was in my 20s, I couldn't afford a car, so I was biking around Washington, D.C. My grandmother is in her 90s. She should not be driving. She was not driving. But she couldn't, just hop on a bike and bike to the grocery store the way that I could. And I came to see very quickly the way in which her community was designed for people to move in specific ways, but it was designed so that it wasn't designed in a way that could meet her needs as an older person. There were no sidewalks in her neighborhood. And it really just got me thinking about how does space, how are the decisions that urban planners and designers are making, how are values of care embedded into the decisions that we make to construct the built environment the way that we do, and how can we change the values that are underpinning our work so that we can be building more caring infrastructure. And that's really, for me, is how I got to Four Cities and how I got here.
Yeah, for instance, I started to care more about care because, now I have the opportunity to do radio, but I always listen to the radio. So one of my favorite programs, apart from this one, of course, is Siglo XXI, 21st Century in Radio 3, the public radio in Spain. So while in COVID, when the lockdown had just ended in Madrid, of course, it wasn't a general lift of the lockdown, but it was only for students and for children. It was the other way. So the children should have stayed at home by then, and the parents and the workers had to go back to their offices and to their workplaces. So I heard in this program, they always take into account, as us, the opinions of the listeners. So there was a man, and I was impressed that it was a man, really asking for the lockdown to be brought back again, because for him it was very important to be able to work from home and also to take care of his children. Because imagine, you have to work, you have to go to work, and then your children have to stay at home because the schools are still shut. So who's going to take care of your children? How can we conciliate these two spheres, and why do they have to be divided? In the end, also, I relate a lot on this new different perspective is why do we have to conceive everything in dichotomies and in binary thoughts when the private and the public life are intertwined, and everything that maybe we should start moving to think in terms of everything is political and everything should be a collective matter of taking care and of discussion, and in a way to provide people with the ends to meet their needs. So I think that COVID shed light on a lot of these things that were already there, but we weren't able to see because for me, COVID, I like to think it also as a pause of our routines and how we were living our lives within this neoliberal, we are still living them in this neoliberal logic, but somehow COVID made us reflect and look at them. So I invite everyone to use this as an opportunity to reflect which needs you have and weren't being taken into account by them. So yeah. And Belu, what about you?
For me was this idea, like when we were studying during COVID as well, it's very short what I'm about to say, but because some of the stories that I share with you. But when we were doing all our research for the thesis during COVID and learning for the different, courses that we were taking, suddenly, and at the same time, I was learning about all these feminist theories and about the ethics of care, and suddenly so many things to me made so much sense. Like we talk about sustainability, about like environmental sustainability as well, social sustainability, all these things that are included in what I call, and not me, but I like also Colectivo.6, for example, in Spain, which is a collective that we really like what they do, and they work with feminist urbanism and all these things that we like. There is the UN agenda, 2020, 2030, habitats, and all these documents. They all talk about the same thing, and this is what we're talking about here. But then when you say feminist urbanism, to some people, it feels like something very radical, very, niche, only for women, and this is not the case. And so for me, it's just a matter of spreading the word. Like, this is a proposal that sounds so good. It covers so many different aspects, and it has potential because it's about looking after everyone and creating better cities. So why not, trying to see ways of adopting this different paradigm? Yeah.
We have some comments and people that has shared with us their
Thank you.
perspectives. Thanks a lot. We have one from Pia, and she says that care should come from the state or the government, thinking in people and their necessities, not in politics or the government interests. Of course, like this caring perspective aims to put people at the center because we have forgotten about, and again, like we think in terms of markets, of profit, and we barely took the opportunity to reflect how in the end, like we are human beings with necessities, with bodies, with desires. So maybe we should start moving towards a paradigm that takes more that into account.
And just building off of that, Vivi, I think one of the things that really struck me about some of the language that we encountered in the texts about the caring city is this idea of, rather than caring for, it's caring. Another way we can think about care is caring with. And I think really for me, this language then encapsulates that it's a shared project that we're all implicated in, and so we're all caring with each other and caring for each other through caring with each other. And that, yes, it's the role of the state. It's also the role, Millie also made a comment about caring for our roommates. So caring for the people that we live with. So it's a project that we're all involved in on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, exactly. It's a very broad debate. For instance, here, Ialte, I hope I'm pronouncing your name properly. He's saying that there was some restaurants in Copenhagen at the start of COVID that gave free food to all the hospital staff working extra hours. So yeah, in the end, COVID also show how it's really possible to put at the center the needs of also these people that are the caring workers, like doctors, maybe babysitters. So how, for instance, the mobility was prioritized for them. So again, like putting the accent that COVID showed a lot of inequalities, but also a lot of possibilities. Maybe that if we have less need of moving within the city to go to our working places, maybe we can start moving towards a more cleaner way of moving by bicycles, because people might feel more comfortable to ride them because there are less cars in the city. So yeah, like the invitation again is to think about these possibilities and different needs that are there unattended by the state, but that are really important for us and our daily lives. So,
just we're almost at 4 o'clock. So I just want to say thank you to Belu for joining us, to Vivi, to Jacob and Daniel for giving us this space and these beautiful microphones and this amazing setup, and for hosting this radio program, and to T-Radioen. I'm getting okay. I'll have to work on that. I should stick around for the next radio program. And just want to quickly give before we move to the last song that Sara selected for today, just a quick teaser for next week. Next week, I'm going to be joined by Mili, who's another member of Urban Femina, and two partners who are going to be talking about an activation that we're planning to bring to explore joy and imagination in the urban context, and thinking about how joy and imagination are part of our dimensions of care. And so in preparation for that, I'm going to put a link to a form in the chat where, if you would like, we would love for you to share some stories that you have, some of your stories about how you found or made joy and had fun over the past 8 months during COVID, in what was a very tumultuous and, I think for many of us, a very difficult period of doing a lot of care, emotional, physical, medical, for each other. So share some stories of joy with us, please.
Thanks a lot, Belu, for joining the video call.
Thank you, girls. It was fun.
And the last song that we want to play, again, was chosen by Sara, and it's a song by Canadian artist Charlotte A. Wilson, and it's called Work. And it's really beautiful why Sarita chose it, because she understands the lyrics as our feminist struggles in everyday life, and I assume that the struggles of a lot of people out there, because the lyrics say it's gonna take a bit of work, it's gonna take a little time. So for us, we are very confident that this is possible, like getting to this paradigm to be real is possible, but of course it will take a lot of work, so we are here continuing working. Have a nice Sunday.